Can we extend this further? In the previous movie we looked at two sorts of questions and at relative clauses and saw that we can predict their form. We can predict it by supposing that things have been moved, that there is a relationship between one form and the other. Well, there are more such relationships. Let's move on and have a look at commands, often called the imperative form of the sentence. And again, let's start with some data. Let's suppose that if there is a statement, then there is a form of the imperative. Eat your porridge. The statement would be, John eats his porridge. But the command form of that is, eat your porridge. After the porridge has been eaten, Joanna dried the dishes, or even John dried the dishes. So, dry the dishes. Get off to school. This is a fairly peremptory sort of parent, isn't it? But then, they used to be like that in some cases. So what is the form of the imperative? First of all, there's no subject. There doesn't seem to be a subject. And yet, we're used to having subjects, and the imperative doesn't seem to have them. Secondly, there's no auxiliary. There's just a plain lexical verb, nothing on the end of it, and in this case, objects. So, where does that turn up? Well, it turns up often in advertisements. Here's an advertisement. Whoops. The advertisement is, come to life in Singapore. Not everyone can be born in Singapore, but I guess you can come to life in Singapore and explore the fabulous circle. Well, come to life is an imperative. Explore the fabulous circle is another imperative. Take in the lyric isles of Tiaman and Rawa. That's an imperative. The virgin beaches and cool highlands across the causeway, jewel-like Penang, sensual Bali. Another imperative. Take home 1,000,000 memories. Well, why are they being used? Obviously the advertiser isn't in a good position to order you about, and yet subtly that's what they're trying to do. They're suggesting that you should come to life in Singapore and telling you to do so, and telling you to explore the fabulous circle, etc., and telling you to take home 1,000,000 memories. If you have a look at advertising language, it's full of imperatives, and yet, of course, the person ordering you about isn't in a good position to do so at all. Then there are passives. For every sentence in English that has a subject and an object, there's another form, the passive form, in which those have been moved about. Let's suppose Frida is fond of Porsches and she drives them. Frida drives Porsches. We can also say Porsches are driven by Frida, and nothing has really changed except the word order. She's still doing the driving, but somehow the emphasis has changed to Porsches now being the subject, and Frida is less important than the Porsches. Sheep are eating grass. Grass is being eaten by the sheep. One of those is the active form and the other is the passive form. In passives, the object of the verb is moved to subject position, and we can then do two things with the old subject. We can either put it into a by phrase, Porsches are driven by Frida, or we can get rid of it altogether and just say Porsches are driven and leave Frida out of the picture. The verb is also shifted. Frida drives Porsches. Porsches are driven. And you'll remember when we looked at the auxiliary way back, there's a form of be plus en which gives us a passive form. I didn't say much about it at the time, but here it is. You only get that form when the object has been moved into subject position. Even when we've got the progressive form, as we have in 2a, we get two verbs be one after the other. Grass is being eaten by the sheep. So we have both the passive and the progressive together there. And again, as with all the others, the form is predictable. Given a statement of a particular form, you can predict the form of the passive. It's entirely rule governed, and so we're not making up a new sentence in some ways, we're just switching bits of an old sentence about. There is another form of the passive which doesn't use be but uses get. Porsche's get driven by Frida. This is a slightly more informal form, but it's certainly about. Grass gets eaten by the sheep, or grass just gets eaten. Porsche's just get driven. There they are, Porsche's get driven. The grass gets eaten. Get can be used in the place of be. And the logical subject, the one actually doing it, the agent of the action, can be left out. Well, let's put this together to a slightly more complicated form. The tag question. In English, it's possible to have little tags. He has eaten his porridge. And if we're not quite sure, we want confirmation, we can say, hasn't he? Well, the form of this little question at the end after the comma is actually quite complicated. First of all, the have verb from the beginning, the auxiliary verb, has been put to the end again. It's been duplicated, and then we've put a not after it, and then we've put the subject again. We've duplicated the subject. So in a way, the tag question is a kind of a copy. If the first bit of the sentence is positive, it doesn't have a negative, then we put a negative in. They could be coming. Now, do the tag. They could be coming, couldn't they? The old man whom he saw didn't come. Whoops! We can't do it twice. Interesting. Here we've got an embedded clause, a relative clause, the old man whom he saw did not come. We can put a tag question on the main clause, the old man didn't come, did he? But we can't put a tag question on the embedded clause, whom he saw, didn't he? If that was pulled out by itself, he saw someone, didn't he? That would be fine, but not in embedded form. That makes a distinction which we've already made between main clauses and embedded clauses. Main clauses can have tag questions, embedded clauses can't. Can embedded clauses have WH questions? Can embedded clauses have yes/no questions? I'll leave you to think about that. I haven't been to see Roger. That's the main clause. When he is late is an adverbial clause of time. Now, if we were going to predict, we'd say we can put a tag question on the main clause. I haven't been to see Roger. Have I? Oh yes, and here's a negative. So if there's a negative in the main clause, we don't get the negative in the tag question. I haven't been to see Roger, have I? But we wouldn't expect to be able to put it on he is late, isn't he? Indeed, I haven't been to see Roger when he's late, isn't he? Is bad. But I haven't been to see Roger when he's late, have I? Is fine. So we can make a distinction between main clauses and embedded clauses, and we've made that, but the grammar makes it as well. It allows some things to happen in main clauses that it won't allow to happen in embedded clauses. Here's just another little example to show you how that works. In English, we can switch that sentence round. We can say, in came John. That's not the normal order. We've pushed the subject to the end, and we've pushed an adverbial to the front. The horse trotted down the road. We can also say, down the road trotted the horse. That's sometimes called preposing or inversion. Doesn't much matter what it's called really. The important thing is we can do that in main clauses. We've just seen that. Can we also do it in embedded clauses? The man left because John came in. There we've got John came in again, but this time John came in as in an embedded clause. Can we switch it round? The man left because in came John. No, we can't do that little operation when the clause is an embedded clause. And yet we can do it when it's a main clause. The grammar seems to be sensitive to whether clauses are main clauses or embedded clauses. Here's another one. The man was Jim Anderson. Well, there's a relative clause in there, who was caught when the horse trotted down the road. And this time the horse trotted down the road is two clauses down. It's inside a relative clause, and the relative clause is inside the main clause. Can we switch the horse trotted down the road round the way we can in 2a and 2b? No, we can't. The grammar has decided that there are some operations, some of these movement rules, that it will allow in main clauses, but it won't allow them in relative clauses.